Paid for by A Common America. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. Learn more at www.acommonamerica.org.
Welcome to A Common America. This week we wanted to get together and talk about a politician who's had a long career and has been referred to as a very bipartisan icon in the Senate. We wanted to talk this week about the passing of Joe Lieberman. Joe Lieberman was a politician who served as a United States Senator from Connecticut from 1989 to 2013. He was originally elected to the United States Senate as a Democrat in the 1988 election, defeating a liberal Republican, Lowell Weicker, by a margin of only 10,000 votes. He scored the nation's biggest political upset that year after being backed by a coalition of Democrats and unaffiliated voters with support from the conservative Republicans, most notably including the National Review founder and firing line host, William F. Buckley. It's not often that you get conservatives with those credentials backing a Democratic senator, but that really speaks to Joe Lieberman's bipartisan approach to politics.
GM, when you think about Joe Lieberman, I mean, what thoughts come to mind immediately?
Some of the more iconic examples in Joe Lieberman's career. Yes, he was on the presidential ticket in 2000, but it's those times when he crossed the aisle, breaking from some of his Democratic colleagues to find opportunities to collaborate with Republicans. He was certainly a hawkish individual when it came to foreign policy. Those were some examples where he crossed party lines to seek connection with Republican colleagues. But even more, later in his life, he was a founding member and chairperson of the No Labels Party, and that kind of capped off his bipartisan career and his life in a lot of ways.
Yeah, when I think of him, at least over the last 230 years, one thing comes to mind is his friendships, especially his friendship with John McCain, and how they would spend time together, they would travel together. They were clearly in public very good friends. They didn't let policy, even sometimes they differed on policy, they wouldn't let policy prevent that friendship. They embraced it and they debated, but at the end of the day, they would still be friends and they still would govern and would help each other govern and look for the right solutions for the country. That's what I probably admire him for the most, is this, that, or both of them actually. I'm also a John McCain fan because they put country first, and even with some either side coming back to them at the end saying you shouldn't have done that, but they always felt very open about their conversations, and they felt very good about having the debate because they think that's how good governance should look. And if we keep referring to the bond the three of those senators had, and then looking at Lindsey Graham today, it's strange to me that he was even involved with McCain and Lieberman because, in my opinion, Graham has been, I'd almost use the word radicalized on the Trump side over the last 6 years. He's taken some really extreme positions, and it surprises me that he was so in tune or I don't know, maybe empathetic with John McCain and Joe Lieberman back in the day, and now we see what he is today, and it just doesn't seem like that's probably the same person that they dealt with. I don't know what's going on there exactly. That's kind of what I think of.
Yeah, John McCain talked in his memoir that one of his biggest regrets in that election was that he didn't select Joe Lieberman as his running mate. That would have been a mixed party ticket in some ways, although at that time Joe Lieberman had considered himself and registered as an independent. But to pick someone who had previously considered himself a Democrat, it could have really been an interesting ticket at that time.
I would probably say that if he would have picked Lieberman, the outcome of that election probably would have been different. Because to be honest, I probably would have voted for McCain if he had a different running mate, to be honest. I think a lot of people would probably feel that way.
So his relationship with the Democratic Party, you probably saw that shift quite a bit over his political career prior to his independent run in 2006.
Yeah, it's funny. I think in some ways, I don't know that Joe Lieberman and his positions changed so much as the party shifted their focus to a set of issues where he wasn't as aligned with the Democratic Party. There were still many areas where he did align to the Democratic Party and the party policies, but there were some notable ones at the time where he did differ in his perspective. He was a senator who introduced and championed "Don't Ask, Don't Tell," and that was a policy that the Democratic Party was very aligned on. He also led the legislation that led to the creation of the Department of Homeland Security.
What other challenges did you see Joe Lieberman face during his campaigns for public office, especially navigating bipartisan cooperation throughout his career?
Well, I think the biggest challenge he had was when there was a Democrat that ran against him, so he had to actually get on a third-party ticket. That was probably the biggest challenge he had as far as from the Democratic side. And then probably one of the, as he became an independent and usually caucused with the Democrats, but probably one of the reasons he ended up being on the No Labels, formation committee, because he felt like, again, party is a secondary concern after governing. And I wish we had more people like Joe Lieberman around now. We have very few people like that. I think his presence in the Senate helped a lot and helped get a lot of legislation passed.
There is fear I think what I've heard in analysis after the passing of Joe Lieberman, that the No Labels movement doesn't have that iconic leader. He certainly was an iconic leader, and it doesn't have that at this point. Again, I think that speaks to the generational change that in his generation of politicians, bipartisanship was valued and was vocalized, and in the current younger generation or today's generation of politicians find success when they migrate to the extremes, and the moderate voter, the large moderate voting bloc, doesn't have a voice. That's exactly what we're trying to highlight, is that there is a need for bipartisan politicians to step forward as a leader.
So Joe Lieberman's passing leaves kind of a significant gap.
It does. Yeah, I think so.
But an opening for somebody to move into that spot and continue the work that he did throughout his career.
Yeah, I do see it as an opportunity. It opens up a lane for younger politicians, and maybe we'll see an Adam Kinzinger or one of these younger politicians step into that lane, a step away from parties that are crumbling around them in some ways with the divisiveness of our politics today, and pick up the mantle. I'd really like to see that happen.
He reminds me a little bit of Bush Sr. They were there to serve the government and the people that held the power for the government in their constituents. And so I just like to see more people who are in this to serve instead of the other things or intentions we've seen. So I am hopeful.
Well, thank you, Joe Lieberman.
Yes, thank you, Joe Lieberman. Exactly. Thank you for your lifetime of service.
Great. Well, that was a really great tribute talk about the life of Joe Lieberman. And if you'd like to learn more about us, our website is available at www.acommonamerica.org, where we have just recently posted a We Believe section where we talk about a number of the major issues that relate to all of our lives, and how we as an organization want to see those issues moved forward, electing officials that will support those and take those issues in to move them forward toward law. Thank you for your time listening to A Common America, the podcast.